pieces of expenditure that we need to make, or our large capital schemes. It cannot be used to profit.
Thank you, Caris, and hopefully, Councillor Jenkins, you picked up that response from Caris. I'm now going to take members to the recommendation, which is on page 216 of your report, that members note the annual Treasury management activities and the actual Treasury management indicators. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you.
No.
Item number 12, joint protocol mileage rates. Can I ask for a mover and seconder for the report, please?
Move.
I'll now
Second.
ask the Chief Officer, Legal and Regulatory Services, HR and Corporate Policy to present this item. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but I'm going to pass straight over to Deborah Beak, who's been waiting patiently for 5 hours.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of recording, Deborah Beak, Group Manager, HROD. So the purpose of this brief report is to seek Council approval to adopt the joint protocol for mileage rates in local authorities in Wales, which has been developed with colleagues in the WLGA in response to market volatility around fuel rates. In terms of background, the mileage rate is a locally agreed term and condition of employment, and that's why we're coming to Council to seek approval today. The current rate for business mileage within the Council is 47p, and that's been the case since 2013, since our agreement of our single status collective agreement. There's been no review since that date. The issue of mileage rates has been a concern raised nationally and particularly, you know, in Bridgend, in the county borough, at a local basis. And in response to this, and in anticipation of a national protocol, an urgent delegated decision was made earlier in August to temporarily increase the mileage rate with a view to bringing a report to this council. Since that time, quite timely, we've received the national report requesting that that the local authority adopts the new rate, and trade unions have nationally have formally agreed that proposal and request that decisions are made locally to make that change. There is this financial implication of the increase, but given some of the efficiencies that have been made across mileage rates, given different ways of working across the council, those costs can be met from within existing budgets. So the protocol is, we're requesting the protocol is approved to take effect immediately and to be reviewed by the 31st of March 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deborah. 2 cabinet members have indicated an intention to speak to support the presentation of the report. Can I invite the leader, please, to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should have declared an interest at the start of the meeting. It's a personal interest as a member of the Welsh Local Government Association, which considered this proposal, and of course I support the proposal. The biggest group of employees that benefit directly as a result of this decision are our home care workers, because they undertake the most mileage for the authority. And we had intelligence that some care workers were even considering not continuing to work for us because of the huge increase in the cost of petrol. And therefore, it was important we put this in place. And it's of note and important to see that this is a temporary arrangement. So if by some miracle petrol costs plummet, then this can be and will be reviewed. But until then, it does support some of our essential workers in the county borough undertaking a very important role for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Can I invite Councillor Jane Gebby, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I also need to declare a personal interest. I am a WLGA member, but I'm also one of the workforce representatives who lobbied and agreed this for leaders to agree. I would also say that this has also been raised on the House of the Senate. We've got MPs raising it everywhere. It's quite right and proper that the review should be undertaken. The HMRC rates have not been reviewed for over 12 years, which isn't appropriate. And whilst our staff may be paying a slight bit of tax on it, they consider it worthwhile. And considering it's my workforce that are going to benefit from it, more importantly, I think it's really important that we do this and we pay them appropriately. And like the leader says, it is on a sliding scale. It can be upped, it can be downed. What I would say is that I fully expect at some point in the not too distant future, if we ever get a different government in Westminster, I want to say, then potentially they will instruct civil servants to review this limit. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gebbie. Councillor Jonathan Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll try not to change governments in Westminster, but I'll keep trying. Well, I don't know. We'll find out. Just in regards to reviewing this, I'll take the words from the leader that if by some miracle fuel prices do go down, that this council will review it and will bring it back to the relevant. If we go back to the glorious days of fuel being under £1 for a litre, and now we're giving 50 pence per mile, it's not really balancing. So a reassurance that we will review this if the need happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Deb, could you provide that reassurance?
Yes, absolutely. It's built into the protocol. The changes will be reviewed and the recommendations will be made right across Wales as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Reassured, Councillor Pratt?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor John Spanswick, please.
My apologies, I missed me. I need to declare prejudice interest in my wife works authority. I will leave the gym before we take any vote on it.
Okay. On the basis of Councillor John Spanswick's declaration of a prejudicial interest, does any other member in the chamber have a similar set of circumstances?
Yeah, I have a prejudicial interest because my son works for BCB. He uses the car a lot.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Can I just take some advice from the monitoring officer, please?
Yeah, if I can just confirm, because this affects everybody, it's not to a select group of people, it affects everybody, and it's based on a national protocol, then there are exceptions, and I don't think this would need to be a prejudicial interest. Obviously, that is a matter for individuals, and if you feel that it is in your particular case, then obviously please leave, but I think it'd be a personal interest rather than a prejudicial at this stage.
Thank you, Kelly. No other member has indicated that they wish to speak. I'm looking at the screen in front of me. Hands are going up and hands are going down. I'm going to take you to the recommendation. Can I take members to the recommendation, which can be found on page 229, that we approve the adoption of mileage rates and delegate authority to the chief exec for any extension. Are we all in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. Move on to item number 13. Would somebody please ask Councillor Spanswick, would he like to join us? Item number 13, Constitution and Constitution Guide. Can I ask a mover and seconder for the report, please?
Moved.
Thank you. Can I now ask the monitoring officer to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Kelly Watson, Chief Officer, Legal, Regulatory and HR. I'm now going to take you through the Constitution report line by line. So, hope you've all got your sleeping bags. So the purpose of this report today is to ask you to approve the revised Constitution and the Constitution Guide. You will all be aware that under Section 37 of the Local Government Act 2000, all Welsh councils are required to keep an up-to-date written constitution. Under the recently approved Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2001, we now also need to publish a Constitution Guide which explains in ordinary language the content of the Constitution. We must also publish the Constitution on the website and now also the Constitution Guide on the website. The All Wales Monitoring Officers Group, via funding from the Welsh Government Association, has commissioned Brown Jacobson solicitors to draft a new model constitution and a new model constitution guide. The style of the new constitution in your pack today is more intelligible to the public, and therefore there is less duplication. Whilst the new model contains detailed provision, adopting the model constitution does not require all those detailed provisions to be adopted. And therefore, following a local review by officers of this authority, some of the Council's existing detailed provision concerning procedure rules, code of conduct and protocols have been retained in order to preserve continuity. At this stage, I would like to publicly thank Laura Griffiths, who's the officer who went through this, and she did go through it line by line to make sure that it was appropriate for our purposes. Whilst the draft constitution looks quite different, it's by the nature largely comprises the same elements, and set out at paragraph 4.3, you have those elements attached. You'll see at Appendix 2 a constitution guide, which is based on the Brown-Jacobson model, but has been adapted to reflect the Council's constitutional arrangements. A guide summarizing all the provisions of the Constitution is also attached at Appendix 3, and these will all be made publicly available. The model constitution and the guides were considered by the Democratic Services Committee in July, and the committee recommended that a working group be established with support from Laura to review all aspects of the Constitution. Appendix 4 summarises the issues identified through discussions from the working group and sets out a series of recommendations arising from the group for consideration. It should be noted that further amendments have been made to the Officers' Code of Conduct following consultation with trade unions. A report was presented to Cabinet yesterday seeking approval of the Constitution and Constitution Guide insofar as it related to the executive functions. Therefore, Mr Mayor, I take Council to the recommendations of paragraph 9 and ask that they would approve the recommendations of the working group and approve the revised Constitution and Guide.
Thank you, Kelly. I can see that Councillor Rees-Good has indicated that he wishes to speak to contribute to the presentation of the report. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to give my thanks and the Cabinet's thanks to Kelly and Laura and the team. It's a hell of a piece of work. It's a very long document, and Laura really has gone through it line by line. She's done it with me several times, bless her, and it's been very, very helpful. I also just wanted to reflect on and give thanks to members across the chamber and members from each political group who took part in the working group. Make sure that we do have a robust constitution and a constitution that is fit for purpose in the 21st century. So I just wanted to thank all colleagues for that, and I hope we can pass the report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Good. 4 members have indicated that they wish to speak. I'm going to first invite Councillor Tim Thomas to speak, who is the chair of Democratic Services Committee. Councillor Tim Thomas.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I won't speak for long, I promise. But just to suffice to say that as chair of the Democratic Services Committee, I think this was a really robust piece of work. As the report says, we took the decision to, rather than look at this as a single issue item, to give it, given the magnitude and scale of this piece of work, we took the decision to adopt a working group, which was, of course, made up of volunteers from the Democratic Services Committee. I just want to thank those volunteers, Councillors Graham Walter, Martin Hughes, Ian Spiller, Malcolm James and Robert Smith. The recommendations are all there in the report, but we took particular emphasis on there's a real keenness to make sure that the public were aware of their democratic rights. And one of the biggest themes was looking at a more equitable system for members to ask questions. There's, I think, given that we're a more diverse council now, there are clearly more questions being asked, and there needs to be a more equitable system for asking supplementary questions. So the recommendation was that questions are allocated on a proportional system based on group size, not too dissimilar to what is on offer in Westminster. So I hope members agree with the report. I can assure you that a considerable amount of work went into the working group. And thanks very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. 3 other members have indicated that they wish to speak. Can I ask those members that you have a specific question on the agenda item? Councillor Martin Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, an excellent piece of work. A lot's gone in there, and in many ways it is much improved on what came before. However, I do have concerns, and as everyone says, they've read it line by line. People will be familiar with section 420.4, motion to remove the leader. I'm sure everyone has read this. Paragraph A, I have no issue with. Paragraph C, I have no issue with. Paragraph B, I have a really big issue with, and I'd like to move an amendment to this paragraph, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor. And I'm sure other members will hopefully agree. In order for such a motion to be carried, it must have the support of at least 2/3, that's 2/3, 67% of those members voting and present at the time of the question. I find that unacceptable. To me, if a leader cannot command a majority, then he or she has no place leading the council. Now, people may say that at that relatively low threshold, that it could be misused, but it can't be misused because paragraphs A set a bar for calling a motion, and section C ensures that only one such motion could occur within a rolling 12 months. Therefore, I think there's adequate protection there. And also, I think, in my short time here, 50% or a majority is a high bar. And again, as I said, frankly, if a leader of whatever party or whatever political persuasion cannot command a majority when it comes to a confidence vote, which is effectively what it is, then they have no place being a leader. And therefore, I'd like to amend this, but accept it in every other way, but amend it to replace the words in 4.20.4b, have the support of at least 2/3 of those members voting, to have the support of at least a majority of those members voting. And I would like to propose that amendment, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. And I'm just for a point of clarity, I'm just going to ask the monitoring officer that she's satisfied that she's got the thrust of your amendment, because as I understand it, you're looking to change the number on votes. Is that right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So currently the threshold for a vote to remove the leader, it would require 2/3 of the councillors present. So assuming everyone was there, that would be 34 councillors. So that would mean that 33 people could be dissatisfied with the leader, but the leader would still stay in place. I would like to change 2/3 to a majority, the words 2/3, and replace with a majority.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have a seconder for this amendment, please?
I'll second.
Councillor Steve Bledsoe has indicated that he wishes to second that motion. Right, can we just park that for 1 second? Because I'm confronted now with 1, 2, 3 other members who have indicated an indication to speak. Is it in relation to this amendment, please? Councillor Alex Williams.
No.
I like a precise answer. Thank you. Councillor Alan Wathen.
I would echo that, no.
And finally, Councillor Ross Thomas.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it is. So if you can grant me permission just to speak on the amendment, I'd like to support Councillor Williams in his amendment that we move to a simple majority. I also question the high bar that was set by 2/3 of members needing to vote in favour of no confidence and not that simple majority. Look, I appreciate that the calling of a no confidence vote is a very serious matter, but I'd like to think that it wouldn't be done on a whim. Surely, if any leader, as Councillor Williams has already said, were unable to command the support of at least 50% of the chamber, we'd be in dire straits. And where, for example, a minority administration is formed, that's done so either on the tacit agreement of opposition groups and individuals, or in their own inability to form an administration themselves. So I support Councillor Williams' amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And one other member has also indicated that he wishes to speak. And I'm going to pose the same question to you, Councillor Pratt. Is it in relation to the amendment, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, would you like to
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I've got to speak against this. There is strong precedent for a two-thirds majority for it sits across many developed political mainstreams. Trying to remove the President of the United States of America is almost now an impossible, but rightly with a two-thirds majority. These types of decisions can't be taken lightly. There are many councils in no overall control where this could create chaos for political stability. I say this as a Conservative with the delight of removing the leader of the council and the Labour group, but reality stands. That's how the people voted. It is right that we maintain stability within our local authorities. So I would speak against this motion and support the two-thirds majority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. I'm now going to ask the monitoring officer to guide us through the amended motion that has been presented to us. And I'm also mindful that two other members wish to speak on a matter which is not part of the amendment. So please bear with me and I will come back to you on that. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to confirm for members that under the Welsh legislation, we don't need a provision in the Constitution to deal with this at all. So this whole section is voluntary that we've put this in. So in England, you do have to include it in your Constitution. In Wales, you don't. So we are going further than we do need to under the legislation. I would agree with what Councillor Pratt has said, and this was discussed in the Constitution Working Group that I sat on, not the internal one, the national one. That you do need stability in local government, and it was felt that the 50% bar, you could be leading to more polls for no confidence in the leader when at a time where you do need stability. Obviously, it is a matter for council. In terms of the amendment, what we will need to do now is if there's agreement, then it just goes through. If there's dissent in the room, we need to vote on the amendment before we move to the substantive item. So you either agree in the amendment, and if the amendment is agreed, we then discuss everything more generally. If the amendment isn't agreed, we just left with the papers before you, and obviously the other councillors can come in at that stage then and comment on other issues. What I would ask is perhaps if everybody could put their hands down for a second, but if then people could indicate if they got other amendments they want to make, because sometimes these things all tie in together.
Thank you, Kelly. So if your question is not related to the amendment, please take your hand down. Thank you. So we will now go to a vote on the amendment. No, thank you. All our hands are down. So we will now go to a vote on the amendment that is as presented by Councillor Williams and seconded by Councillor Steve Bledsoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I will read out the names as listed alphabetically. Councillor Sean Aspey, please. Oh, thank you. Councillor Heidi Bennett.
Against.
Councillor Anthony Barrow. Councillor Freya Bledsoe. For. Can I just remind members in the chamber to put their mics on for the vote, please, because those at home can't hear. Thank you. Councillor Stephen Bledsoe.
For the amendment.
Councillor John Paul Blundell.
Against the amendment. Thank you, Rachel.
Councillor Eugene Caparros.
Against.
Councillor Nora Clark.
For the amendment.
Councillor Richard Collins.
Against.
Councillor Hugh David.
Against, do I need to declare an interest though?
No.
Councillor Colin Davis.
Against the amendment, thanks.
Councillor Paul Davis. Sorry, Councillor Paul Davis.
As the committee that looked into this in detail, put it at 2/3. I'm against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Easterbrook.
For the amendment.
Councillor Melanie Evans.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Neil Farr.
Against.
Councillor Paula Ford. Offline. Councillor Jane Gebby.
Against.
Councillor Rees Good.
Against.
Councillor Richard Granville.
Against.
Councillor Heather Griffiths.
Against.
Councillor Dave Harrison,
For.
Councillor Derek Hughes,
For the amendment.
Councillor Martin Hughes,
Against.
Councillor Martin Hughes, sorry.
Against the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phil Jenkins,
For the amendment.
Councillor Mark John,
For.
Councillor Martin Jones,
Against.
Councillor
Sorry, may I say a point of order?
By all means, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were members on the bottom of the bar that indicated they were not in the meeting during the debate, and I've now seen a couple of them scurry in, which I don't think is allowed. They cannot possibly vote if they didn't hear the whole debate.
Councillor Thomas, we've had the debate.
Which they didn't hear. And now it looks to me like they're trying to get in to vote.
I didn't see anyone.
Councillor Thomas, can I reassure you that no member has left the chamber during the debate session? Some members have left the chamber to get a glass of water to support another member in the chamber. So there has been no breach of protocol or process.
I'm not so sure about that, but okay.
Thank you. Shall we carry on with the vote, please?
Councillor Mike Kern, please.
Against.
Councillor William Kendall,
Against.
Councillor Maxine Lewis,
Against.
Councillor Joanna Llewellyn Hopkins,
Against.
Councillor Jonathan Pratt,
Against.
Councillor Robert Smith,
Against.
Councillor John Spanswick,
Against.
Councillor Ian Spiller,
Against.
Councillor Ross Thomas,
For.
Councillor Tim Thomas,
For.
Councillor Graham Walter,
Against.
Councillor Alan Wathen,
The amendment.
Councillor Alex Williams,
For the amendment.
Councillor Amanda Williams,
For the amendment.
Councillor Martin Williams,
For the amendment.
Councillor Howell Williams, Councillor Richard Williams,
Against the amendment.
Councillor Elaine Winstanley,
Against the amendment.
Councillor Tim Wood.
For the amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I've got,
You haven't called my name out, Councillor Ian Williams.
sorry, Councillor Williams, I thought you disappeared earlier. Apologies.
I've got my connection back. I'm for the amendment.
Did you hear all the debate, Councillor Williams?
Yes, I was here before it started.
My apologies. So, Mr. Mayor, I've got a vote of 29 to 16 against the amendment.
Thank you, Rachel. So the amendment has been defeated. We'll move on. Members did indicate that they wish to ask a question on the Constitution not relating to the amendment. So I'm now happy to take those questions. Councillor Ian Williams, please. Councillor Ian Williams?
No, I didn't have a question. My hand was up. It was a legacy hand.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Gebby?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm really quite concerned that we had a cross-party working group and we've just spent 20 minutes in here debating an amendment that should have been heard in the working party, and you should have put it in there. So if you've got any problems, then there obviously is some communication issues in your group. One of the reasons that the Labour group are so adamant and so strong on this is because we actually have discussions, and that paper came to our group to discuss. So possibly other opposition leaders could discuss that with their group, please.
Thank you, Councillor Gebby. Councillor Alex Williams.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm incredibly sorry for the epileptic episodes which I've been having this evening, but I do have a number of comments on the Constitution, if I may. On page 266, with regards to paragraphs 4.11.4, on receiving announcements from the Mayor, Chief Executive, the Leader, or any member of the Cabinet,
Are we able to amend this to allow members to ask questions and receive answers from members such as the leader and cabinet members? I believe that this would require amendment of paragraphs 4.19.2 and 4.19.4 on page 270. I know that there is some frustration on occasion that the leader and members of the cabinet make some announcements and then questions cannot be posed by ordinary members. So I think this would be an amendment which could possibly be considered. This is a point of clarification for the monitoring officer, if I may. With regards to page 307.24 on the party whip, the proposed constitution notes that if a member of an overview and scrutiny committee is subject to a party whip in respect of an issue to be considered by it, that member must declare the existence of the whip and the nature of it before the commencement of deliberations on the matter. Just on a point of clarification, why doesn't this apply to full council? And I question whether it should apply if it does apply in committees. And then finally, Mr. Mayor, I apologise, I have 3 questions. With regards to regulatory committees and specifically 9.2.2 on page 305 of the document, I do not believe that there should be a facility whereby there could be a member of the cabinet or any executive influence on the governance and audit committee, and I suggest that this would be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'm going to invite the monitoring officer to answer your 3 questions. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to say that I do agree with Councillor Gerbie that there was a comprehensive working group dealing with this and these issues haven't been raised. We are working to timescales to get our constitutional guide published. So it is disappointing that these issues weren't raised so they could have been explored further by officers at that time. But that is a matter for council and I'm in your hands what you want to do with that. In terms of the questions, again, you can make those amendments. We need to take a seconder for the amendment and then take the vote again to see if you want it amended. The regulatory committees and the composition of them are largely set out in statute, so we have legislative requirements we have to comply with. And apologies, Councillor Williams, I missed your second point. I think you said it was page 307. I think it was about the whip.
Is the second point out of 3, Kelly, was with regards to the party whip. Why is it only applicable to committees and not applicable in terms of declaring that party whip for full council? I understand in some of the notes for different scrutiny committees that it's you have to declare whether you've been subject to any party whip when you're discussing scrutiny business. That doesn't exist when you're in full council, and I'm wondering why that's the case.
Again, there are certain regulatory requirements we need to comply with, and that sets out certain circumstances when the whip has to be declared. I think where we're at the moment is that these are a number of amendments you are now proposing, so I think we probably need to see if there's a seconder to those amendments that you're putting forward. I am concerned that if we are going to go through this and there's going to be a number of other amendments, we're not going to do it justice. So an alternative is that I could take it away, reconvene the working group and everybody feeds in. But that's again a matter for full council. I have to emphasise we did have the working group. They met on a number of occasions and none of these issues were fed back to me at all.
Councillor Williams, in your questions, you are presenting amendments. Well, is it your desire to proceed with those amendments?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the late hour, and can I just ask whether we were all approached to provide evidence with respect to the working group?
The working group was set up by the Democratic Services Committee. There were representatives from all parties on the working group, and they were asked to feed back to their group and to take comment from the group to the working group.
Okay. Well, given the late hour, then I will probably remove my suggested amendments, but I think they should still be noted in the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Williams. Finally, Kelly.
Just one other point. This isn't, if this is approved today, this isn't set in stone for the next 5 years. There are opportunities to review it again periodically. You know, we can bring things to the AGM. So it's not as if you're going to be agreeing things here that you're going to have to live with for the next 5 years. You can have further opportunities in the future.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Alan Wathen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. I just want to draw your attention to page 249, section 1 of the Constitution, item 1.2 of the council operates. 1.2.1 line says, the council is comprised of 51 councillors elected every 4 years. Surely it's every 5 years. So that must have slipped past the working group, I would suggest.
We'll make that amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you for your vigilance, Councillor Wathen.
It just shows I do read these documents, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Thank you. Councillor Alex Williams, is that a legacy hand? Thank you. Councillor Stephen Bledsoe, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do feel urged to make this statement. Councillor Watten's last point there about picking up a mistake, which obviously it was a mistake, it wasn't done deliberately, shows why this item has to be discussed in front of full council. I take offence at comments made about the operations of certain political parties or groups within this chamber. I hold my own views about how certain political groups operate. I will keep them to myself. I won't be expressing them in the chamber. I would hope that as a council for the next 5 years, we will all do that.
Thank you, Councillor Bledsoe. Well, I'm looking at the screen. I assume Councillor Wathen has a legacy hand. It's gone. Thank you. Right, can I take members to the recommendation, page 237, that we approve the recommendations of Democratic Services Working Group and approve the revised constitution and guide. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 14, appointment of the Chief Executive's Appraisal Panel. And for those who are accessing the meeting virtually, the Chief Executive has just left the meeting. I'll now ask the monitoring officer to present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be brief. This report is to approve the appointment of members to a panel responsible for the appraisal and performance of the Chief Executive. A revision to the membership of the panel is required following the 2022 Local Government and Elections Act to ensure that the appraisal panel now reflects the political makeup of the council and the involvement of all political groups. It is proposed that appointments to the panel are made in preparation for the appraisal review, which is scheduled to take place on the 3rd of November 2022. It is proposed that the panel is comprised of the following members: the leader, the deputy leader, a Labour representative, the leader or a representative of Bridgend County Independents, and the leader or representative of the Democratic Alliance Group. I therefore take you to the recommendations of paragraph 9 and ask each group for their nominations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hugh David, leader, please.
I move the recommendations, Mr. Mayor, and I nominate Councillor Simon Griffiths.
Thank you, Councillor David. Are there any other speakers, please? Thank you. Can I take members to the recommendation? Sorry, there is one speaker. Councillor Ross Thomas.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought we were inviting nominations. So for my group, the Democratic Alliance, myself as group leader. Thank you.
My apologies, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Amanda Williams.
Apologies. I was asked to put it in my diary. I didn't know I'd have to be nominated myself. But yes, it'd be me as well for my group. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Williams. I think the panel has now been identified. Can I now therefore take members to page 528 that we appoint a panel responsible for the Chief Executive's appraisal, comprising of the members as listed in 4.2 and as identified by the members who spoke during this agenda item. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 15, review of political balance, changes to committee membership, Can I ask a mover and seconder for the report, please? Can I now ask the monitoring officer to present the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is to advise Council of the outcome of the adjusted political balance for the authority resulting from Councillor Stephen Easterbrook being elected in the recent by-election, and to seek your approval for the revised political balance and approve the allocation of seats to political groups as set out. As you're aware, Councillor Stephen Easterbrook has recently been elected in the by-election for Bridgend Central Ward, and therefore the following changes to committee memberships are required. They are set out at paragraph 4.1. So you'll see the Town and Community Council Forum, the Democratic Alliance Group lose a seat and the Bridgend County Independents gain a seat, and the Development Control Committee, an independent member loses a seat and the Bridgend County Independents gain a seat. Following this change, the membership of committees has been updated to reflect the composition of the council. The updated political balance figures are taken into account the above, as shown in the attached appendices to the report. We have consulted with the group leaders of the Bridgend County Independents and the Democratic Alliance, together with Councillor Aspey, and they are in agreement with them. The group leaders have been asked to announce at this meeting the changes as relevant to their groups, and therefore take you to the recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kerry. Can I please invite Councillor Ross Thomas to announce a change, please, within his political group?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. For my group, remove Councillor Ellie Richards from the Town and Community Council Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and similarly, Councillor Amanda Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It will be Councillor Stephen Easterbrook who will be going on to the Development Control Committee and the Town and Community Council, Town and Community Council Forum.
Thank you, councillors. Can I therefore take members to the recommendation, which can be found on page 533? Note and approve revised political balance and approved revised allocation of groups. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Can I come now to item number 16, information report for noting? Can I ask for a mover and seconder for the report, please?
Move.
Thank you. Can I now ask the Chief Officer, Legal and Regulatory Services, HR and Corporate Policy to present this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very short admin report, and the purpose is to inform Council of the information report that has been published since your last scheduled meeting. The detail of that is set out at paragraph 4.1, and I'd ask you to note the contents.
Can I take members to the recommendation on page 538? Acknowledge the publication of the document listed in the report. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm now going to take us to item number 17 to receive the following questions to the executive. Now, this is an opportunity for members to ask a question. We have a time allocation of 30 minutes to this area of business. And can I reassure you all, I am going to strictly adhere to 30 minutes. However, can I invite you, please, especially to those who have presented their question, that if they are happy with the written response, then we can move on. So the first question is from Councillor Graham Walters to the Cabinet Member, Social Services and Early Help. Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy with the response, but I would like to ask a supplementary.
Okay, and what is your supplementary?
So I would like to thank the Cabinet Member Deputy Leader for the comprehensive response, but can I ask what role we as a group of 51 councillors, the whole council, can play in assisting with recruitment? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. Councillor Gebby, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for your question, Councillor Walters. What I would ask you to do is look at all our recruitment social media posts, if they're on our website, if you can encourage anybody. But also, I think we need to do something about, as councillors, we all have a cabinet parenting role. A corporate parenting role, sorry, it's very late. We all have a corporate parenting role, and it is up to all of us to acknowledge that responsibility. It doesn't matter what committee you're in, it doesn't matter where you are, external, if you're representing this authority in any shape or form, you need to be cognizant of that fact. And that could be in your local pub. That sounds a bit weird, but you are a corporate parent, so I would expect you to deal with any young person across the county borough like you would your own child. And if you haven't got that ability, then please come and ask us, because we will get you some refresher training, I want to say, but I don't think we've done all our social services member development sessions, so that's coming. What I would say is that it's a difficult position to be in, because we are the role models for those children, and we need to take that on board with great effect. Does that answer your question, Councillor Walters?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Walters, and thank you, Councillor Gebby. I can see that no other member has indicated that they wish to ask a question, so I'm going to on question 2 from Councillor Elaine Winstanley to the Cabinet Member, Social Services and Early Help. Councillor Winstanley, please.
Thank you. I'm happy with the response, and I assume that it would be easier if we do remove the government in Westminster.
Thank you, Councillor Elaine Winstanley. Can I move on then to again, nobody's indicated that they wish to speak. Question number 3, question from Councillor Paul Davis to the Cabinet Member, Social Services and Early Help. Councillor Paul Davis.
I haven't got a question, Chair, sorry.
Thank you for that, Councillor Paul Davis. It's very reassuring to hear that response at such a late hour. I can see again that I'm going to invite the Cabinet Member who had the question. Do you wish to add or anything? Thank you very much, Councillor Gebby. And again, I'm looking at the list and I can see that no other member has indicated an indication to speak. So I'm going to go on to question 4 from Councillor Alex Williams to the Cabinet Member for Communities. Councillor Alex Williams.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I've already drifted off twice, so I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. I'm happy with the written response, and I thank Janine and her team for liaising with me over the course of the last few weeks on this matter. I do have one brief supplementary, I'm afraid, and that is regarding ensuring that the local authority can ensure that Kia meets its contractual obligations until the end of their contract in 2024. And how will the new specification for the short 2-year stopgap contract from 2024 to 26 ensure that there's a commercial incentive to maintain high performance in some areas and improve service delivery in others for the benefits of BCBC residents, given the tight contract?
Councillor John Spanswick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Williams. And as you're aware, the current contract has conditions in there. There are strict penalties built within it at the moment. There's commercial sensitivity as far as how that is financially dealt with, but that is dealt with it. And the current 2-year extension, the document's not quite ready yet. Jeanine can clarify if she likes, but that is currently put together to make sure that there'll be just such a strict, if not more strict, conditions in there to improve performance.
Thank you, Councillor Spanswick. No other member has indicated that they wish to speak on this topic. I'm now going to question 5. Question from Councillor Ian Williams to the Cabinet Member for Communities. Councillor Williams.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Williams sent me a message to say that he'd dropped off the internet and he couldn't access any longer.
Okay, so that concludes the 5 questions. That concludes item number 17, unless the Cabinet Member for Communities would like to add to that, but I don't think he would. But I'm being, yes? By all means, you're entitled to.
It's not in relation to the answer, it's in relation to the question. I would hope in the future that members putting questions may think about the comments, the way they pose the question. I think saying there's a great deal of anger and that Lewishfield is an absolute disgrace, I don't think it's a true reflection of the public. There is work needed. There will be work done to play it and Lewishfields, but that's not the way to pose a question.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Spanswick. We have now finally finished the 5 questions on agenda number 17. We will now move to agenda item number 18, notice of motion proposed by Councillor Alex Williams. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We finally got there. Following constructive consultation and collaboration with the Cabinet Member for Education, I would like to amend the motion in my name, which now deletes points 1 to 12 and replace the original motion with the following wording, which I've already shared with you, Mr. Mayor, the Monitoring Officer and Democratic Services for ease of reference. The motion now reads that this council confirms that the Cabinet will review Bridgend County Borough Council school admissions policy and arrangements 2020-21 and learner travel policy 2016, and that Cabinet acknowledges all of the points raised by me, Councillor Williams, contained within the original motion and will consider them all within the review. As you have seen the original motion containing my rationale for raising this today, I will not repeat these issues, as you'll be thankful to hear. So I move the amendment, Mr. Mayor, and in the interest of brevity and the fact that we are entering hour 6 of this full council meeting, I will not look to use my allotted time to speak on this issue further today, but look forward to receiving correspondence from the Cabinet on the timetable for both the review of these policies and so that it can be scrutinised in due course. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I hope that this has universal agreement from members.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do I have a seconder, please, for the amended motion provided by Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Councillor John Paul Blundell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just clarify the wording with Councillor Alex Williams there, just for with the many changes that we've made in the last 6 hours? I just want to make sure we've got. Just to be clear, the version I have is that confirms that the Cabinet will review Bridgend County Borough Council's school admissions policy and arrangements for 23-24 in accordance with the policy legislation and learner travel policy 2016. And that Cabinet acknowledges all of the points raised by Councillor Williams himself contained with the original motion. We'll consider them all within the review. I'm looking at Lindsay to make sure we've got the right wording.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Mr. Mayor. However, I thought that the school admissions policy, Lindsay, was for 2020-21, which requires review. Is that correct?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Williams. If we are going to review, we'll be reviewed to subsequent policies. So, for example, what we would do, and again, it's important to note with all policies, there will be due regard to Welsh Government legislation and guidance, and there are time delays, obviously, in installing a new policy. So, as I understand it, if you were to review the policy, I believe the earliest a new policy would come in at this moment in time would be for the school year starting September 24.
I think perhaps, Mr. Mayor, there's a confusion of the understanding this particular point, in that I want the previous policy to be reviewed, so therefore the new policy will come into place in 23-24. So I believe we're on the same page here. Perhaps Kelly can confirm what her understanding is of it.
The previous policy has been approved and is in place, so that can't be reviewed at this stage because there's a consultation period and a statutory process, so you wouldn't be able to change that sort of retrospectively. What you could do is look at any future policies going forward, but as Lindsay said, because of the time delay for the consultation and giving people fair warning, that the earliest that could be effective would be September 2024, because you have to do it so many school terms in advance.
On that basis, I'm happy to accept the amendment to the amendment of the motion.
And on the amendment of the amendment, I will happily second the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Alex has presented an amendment to his motion, which has been seconded by Councillor John Paul Blundell. There is one speaker who has indicated he wishes to speak, and that's Councillor Ross Thomas. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll all sleep tremendously well tonight, I'm sure. I did have a statement, the length of War and Peace, to support Councillor Williams's original motion. You'd be really pleased to know that I'm just going to leave it at, I welcome the review.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Can I ask then that we're all in favour of the amended motion as presented by Councillor Alex Williams?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, which brings me on to item number 19. As I have received no urgent business, I will now close the meeting and thank members and officers